Mulan. Long ago in China, around 500 CE, a teenage girl named Mulan sat at her loom in a shady courtyard.
The author establishes the time and setting for the legend, providing a historical context for the plot and characters' actions.
It was a hot day, and the scent of lotus blossoms wafted in on the warm, gentle breeze. Mulan was supposed to be spinning silk. That was a task many girls and women were expected to perform, even well-born ones such as Mulan. But Mulan could not make her fingers move as nimbly as her mother's. She kept tangling the fine gossamer threads. Mulan paused at her work and wiped her brow, which had beaded up with sweat in the summer heat. It was a good thing no one had seen the gesture. It was not something proper young ladies ought to do.
The author provides details about the main character's personality.
They were expected to perform their duties quietly, to refrain from speaking unless spoken to, and to maintain a scrupulously clean appearance. A fine lady did not wipe away sweat with her sleeves. But Mulan knew she was not an ordinary girl. Her father, a respected general now retired from service to the emperor, had taught her the skills of warfare from the time she could hold a sword. At 15, Mulan could shoot an arrow as straight and true as her father. Her feet were quick, her body fit, and with ease and consistency she beat her younger brother whenever they sparred.
The author tells more about the main character's abilities, which will end up driving the plot.
The late afternoon shadows grew longer. Dusk was settling in. Suddenly, her little brother dashed into the courtyard, panting and excited. For the 1000th time, Mulan found herself envying her brother for his freedom to roam about the village. Girls were not permitted to do so. "There's been an invasion!" he cried in his high-pitched voice. His cheeks were still smooth and soft as flower petals. The top of his head only reached Mulan's shoulder. Mulan stood up, alarmed. "Tell me quickly, brother." "I heard it from the peddler's son," he said. "Another tribe has broken through the emperor's ranks from the north. The imperial soldiers have posted scrolls all around the village with the names of men from every family who must report for duty. Father's name is on the scrolls, but sister, he is too old to fight."
The author introduces the problem of the legend. A war is starting, and Mulan's father is expected to serve in the army, although he is too old to do so.
"Father must send me." His eyes shone with eagerness. "No," said Mulan, shaking her head. "Father is too old, but you are too young." Lost in thought, Mulan sank down onto her bench. She hardly heard her brother as he raced inside to tell her parents the news. Her father would go, Mulan knew. She also knew that going to war would mean certain death for him. But each family in the village was required to send one of their men to fight. The honor of the family must be upheld. Why could she not have been born a boy? A thought struck her. Rising from her bench, Mulan stole into the house. A moment later, she emerged with her father's old cloak. She pulled it over her head so that part of her face was hidden and hurried out of the courtyard.
The author builds suspense. Where is Mulan going, disguised in her father's cloak?
Early the next morning, while the stars were still out and the eastern sky had not yet begun to brighten, a young soldier led a horse along the road leading out of Mulan's village. As soon as they were well away from the village, the soldier leaped lightly into the saddle and, with a quick word to the horse, galloped away. After an hour or so, the rider stopped in a grove of trees and dismounted. The stars had faded, and the sun was beginning to rise. The rider pulled off the helmet. Long, silky black hair cascaded downward. It was Mulan. Mulan did not allow herself to think about the note she had asked the scribe to write to her parents. She had paid him double to remain quiet about its contents. Her parents would awaken soon and learn that Mulan had taken her father's horse and armor, and that she had gone off to join the army in his place. They would be heartbroken, but by the time they found the note, it would be too late to stop her. She did not allow herself to think about what would happen if she, a girl, were caught pretending to be a male soldier. The penalty for such a grievous crime was death.
The author reveals Mulan's solution to her family's problem and the potential deadly consequences of her actions.
Mulan pulled her father's gleaming sword from its sheath, bent over, and flipped her hair downward. Gathering it in her left hand, she cut through the hair with one pass of the sword.
The author shows more about Mulan's strength of character by her actions.
Then she coiled and tied back what was left of her hair and put the helmet back on. The armor was a bit large, but then many young men would be wearing their father's armor. Mulan hoped she would not stand out too much in the crowd of soldiers. She mounted her horse and galloped off down the road. The horse's hooves kicked up a dusty cloud as they carried her away from her village. From the very beginning of her military service, Mulan had to learn to behave the way a man would, and to unlearn the virtues she had been taught that befit a young woman. She had been raised to speak only when spoken to avoid vulgar language, and to remain quietly in the background. In the army, she had to walk like a man with her shoulders thrown back and her gait confident and bold. She also had to pitch her voice low and learn to express her opinion often and with conviction.
The author shows how boys and girls were expected to behave differently in China, reflecting the culture of the time.
But thanks to the training from her father, Mulan did not have to learn battle skills. She was an accomplished rider, nimble as a cat, and deadly accurate with arrows. Many years passed, during which time Mulan was able to keep her secret from the other soldiers in her regiment. She consistently demonstrated such bravery and skill on the battlefield that she quickly rose up through the ranks until she became a decorated officer of some stature. Fellow soldiers respected her intelligence, judgment, and willingness to share in the hardships they all endured. After Mulan had been in the army for 10 years, the emperor summoned her to court.
The author describes Mulan's many accomplishments that win her the respect of all, even the emperor.
"You have fought valiantly," he said. "I wish to reward your long years of faithful service with an appointment to my court. What sort of position do you desire?" Mulan bowed low. "I wish only for a horse," she replied, "so that I may return to my family, whom I have not seen for many years." The emperor was surprised that anyone would decline a position of wealth and power, but he granted Mulan's request, never realizing that this brave warrior was, in fact, a woman. Mulan sent word to her parents that she was on her way home, mounted her new horse, and rode off, eager to see her family again. As Mulan entered her village, she spied her parents waiting for her. "How small and frail they look," she thought. Mulan and her father looked long and deep into each other's eyes. "Daughter," said the old general when he was composed enough to find words, "you have made me proud beyond measure." Tears ran down her mother's face. "You are home at last," she cried, hugging her daughter with a force that surprised and pleased Mulan.
The legend reaches its emotional climax when the author describes Mulan's homecoming 10 years after she first ran off to war.
Mulan felt someone tap her shoulder. She turned to find a tall, handsome lad. It was her little brother, now grown into a strong young man. "Welcome home, sister," he said in a deep voice she did not recognize. Arm in arm, Mulan and her brother walked to their home, where her family had planned a party to welcome her return. Mulan went to her old room and removed her armor. She bathed and dressed in one of her old gowns. She combed her hair into a gleaming black cloud, then applied rice powder to her face and color to her cheeks and lips. A beautiful, still young woman stepped out of Mulan's bedroom, so different-looking from the soldier that had gone in. After years of not being able to dress and act like a woman, Mulan found she enjoyed the experience more than ever before. Very quickly, Mulan settled back into life with her family. She was glad to be home to help her parents, especially now that they were so aged. One day, a group of Mulan's army comrades galloped into the village. They had come to visit their dear old friend and fellow soldier. Entering Mulan's family courtyard, they bowed low before the beautiful woman who came out to greet them. But where was their comrade? The soldiers were stunned to learn that this beautiful woman was the very same soldier who had fought so bravely at their side. Yet they were not surprised by Mulan's valor in battle. She had proven that it does not matter whether a man or a woman is inside a soldier's armor. Either one fights bravely. And is it not so, the soldiers reasoned, that when two rabbits run side by side, one cannot tell which is the she and which is the he?
The author ends the legend by giving readers something to think about. Does gender really make a difference in important events and competitions? Reread the legend. Analyze the characters and